Believe it or not, this photo wasn't taken on a brand new fancy mirrorless camera. It wasn't even taken on a camera from this decade. It was taken on this, a 20-year-old 5 megapixel Canon PowerShot A530. It's been sitting in my closet since 2006. We're all caught in this chase for the sharpest, fattest, most perfect gear, convinced that newer is always better, but what if it's not? So I took this 20-year-old camera out and see if I could use this bad gear and push my creativity in a totally new direction, and what I found out was not what I expected. Well, tucked away in my closet, I found this little silver camera, the Canon PowerShot A530. It was a camera I haven't touched in, I guess, about 15 years, so picking it up was like jumping into the past. Now let's put its specs into perspective from where we stand in 2026. It has a 5 megapixel CCD sensor, and my phone, for comparison, shoots at 200 megapixels, and I'm serious. The camera has 5, my phone has 200. It also shoots on a 2 gigabyte SD card, which, in fact, the camera won't work with any SD card larger than 2 gigabytes, and that maybe holds a few hundred photos, not the tens of thousands we're used to now. But the most shocking feature, the one that truly defines the experience, is the screen itself. It is a 1.8 LCD with about 77,000 dots. It's not a screen, really. It's a postage stamp. It's a vague, pixelated suggestion of the photo you just took. In bright sunlight, it's completely useless. There's no electronic viewfinder, no Wi-Fi, no Bluetooth, no touchscreen, and it's also operated on 2 AA batteries. By every modern standard, this camera is sad, it's slow, and it's clunky too. And it's really technically inferior in almost every way that you can imagine. And that's exactly why I had to use it. Now, I was actually researching small point-and-shoot cameras, and I was also tired about the endless upgrade cycle. You know, that feeling that your current gear is somehow holding you back. So, my whole theory was simple. What if the thing holding me back wasn't my camera, but my own comfort? So, I popped in a fresh pair of batteries and put an old memory card in, a 2 gigabyte memory card, and headed out the door with one rule. This would be the only camera that I was going to use all day. The first thing you notice when you use a camera this old is a startup time. I'd press the button and, there's a leisurely wait of a couple of seconds while the lens groans and extends itself. Now, I was actually wondering if it was even working. Well, my first attempt at a shot was a complete disaster. It was a totally out of focus image. The shutter lag feels like an eternity. And imagine if you had a once-in-a-lifetime shot and this camera would not have lived up to the game. Well, this became the theme for the first hour, and that was nothing but pure frustration. The autofocus would hunt endlessly in the shadows. The screen was so bad, I couldn't tell if anything was in focus anyway, and I was always missing that moment that I know I would have nailed if I'd had a modern camera. I was getting legitimately angry at this little camera and was convinced by then, the whole experiment was a terrible idea. Then, something shifted. It happened the moment I considered giving up. I was giving up trying to use it like a modern camera. I gave up looking at the screen after every shot to see if I'd nailed it. It's because I couldn't see the screen. I just stopped looking and I started looking at the world instead. Now that was the breakthrough. I realized the camera's biggest limitation, its tiny, useless screen, was actually the greatest strength of all. It served as an obsessive feedback loop of shooting, checking, and adjusting and repeating. Suddenly, I was forced to be present. I had to trust my instincts. I had to compose the image in my mind's eye, bring up the camera, take a shot, and just let it go. It was liberating to a degree. The experience felt eerily familiar, and then it hit me. This is what it was like to shoot on film. You take a shot, you have no clue if you got the shot or not, until you actually took the film in for development. There is no instant gratification, only the moment itself. This 20-year-old digital camera was basically simulating thoughtful, deliberate processing that film photography demands. I started working with the camera's quirks instead of against them. I knew the autofocus was slow, so I started anticipating moments. I'd see a compelling background, refocus on the spot, and just wait for somebody to walk into the frame. The lens has a surprisingly versatile 35 to 140 millimeter equivalent zoom as well. The 35 millimeter wide end was perfect, while the zoom let me pick out details from a distance without being intrusive at all. I even started playing with the manual exposure modes. This is something I hadn't expected from such a basic camera. It let me drag the shutter and create intentional motion blur, turning the camera's slowness into actually a creative tool. I was no longer fighting the camera, we were actually working as a team. For the first time in years, I'd absolutely no idea if I had a good single shot or not. The feeling was a mix of terror and pure excitement as well. So when I got home, I plugged the SD card into my computer and I waited for the files to load. And trust me, it felt like I was dropping a roll of film off the lab to that degree. And then they appeared. The first one that popped up was just absolutely surprising to me. In the bright afternoon sun, the colors were incredible. This was the magic of those old CCD sensors. They rendered light and color with a character that is so different from modern cameras today. It felt nostalgic and real. Because the camera is so small and unassuming, people don't notice it or they just don't take it seriously. It let me get closer to life on the street without making people put up their guard. There's an honesty to the moment that would have been lost with a big professional rig. This next shot was a direct result of ignoring the screen. I saw this powerful graphic shape made by shadow on a wall, and I just pointed the camera at it, and without even looking, I fired a shot. I focused entirely on the geometry of the scene in the front of me, not on a tiny pixelated version of it. The result was one of the most interesting compositions I've made all year. Here, the camera's slow shutter speed, which is so frustrating at first, created this beautiful motion blur as a car drove by. It's an imperfect shot, not tack sharp. There's some noise to it, but it feels alive, and that's what's really important. And finally, this photo, the one from the beginning, everything here came together. The light, the subject, the composition, but it's the texture that gets me. It's gritty, it has noise, it doesn't look like it was taken in 2026, it kind of feels timeless. This single image has soul and a character that I feel I've been chasing for years, and I found it in a 20-year-old 5 megapixel toy. So, what did I learn? I went into this expecting to prove that old cliche that gear doesn't matter. But I was wrong. The gear does matter, just not in the way that we think. We assume getting better gear will make us better photographers, but sometimes the opposite is true. The perfect, hyper-capable cameras we use today can become a crutch. They actually make you lazy. We rely on the mind-blowing autofocus, the massive dynamic range, and the flawless low-light performance. We stop thinking and just let the camera do all the work for us. That's where the problem lies. This old camera, by being bad, took all those crutches away, and its limitations weren't a bug, actually. They were a feature. The slow performance forced me to be patient and deliberate. The terrible screen forced me to be present and trust my own vision. The inferior sensor produced images with a unique character that you just can't fake with a filter. It reminded me that creativity isn't about having the best tools, it's about what you do within the boundaries of what you're given. The struggle, or the challenge, of the act of overcoming those limitations, that's where it all happens. It was a powerful reminder that the most important piece of the gear isn't the camera body or the lens, but 12 inches from what's behind the viewfinder. So here's my challenge for you. I know many of you watching probably have an old digital camera somewhere collecting dust in a closet or a drawer, somewhere out of sight, out of mind. Well, find it, take it out, put some batteries into it, take it outside for a day and just see what happens. Embrace its flaws. Let it frustrate you and let it then surprise you. You might just find that it reconnects you for the very same reason you fell in love with photography in the first place. I would genuinely love to see what you're shooting with, whether it's a brand new flagship or an old relic like the one I just dug up. Let me know in the comments below. What's the oldest camera you've ever used to create an image you just absolutely love? If you've enjoyed this little experiment and trip back into time, a like on the video would be a great appreciation. Also, consider subscribing for more videos where we explore the heart and the soul of photography. Well, thanks again for watching. This is Steve, and I'll catch you in the next video.